All right. So basically, this time of year, we start seeing kids in for injuries. There's a couple different things I want to run through real quick on kiddos. The first one I want to talk about concussions. And it's always funny because people have the wrong idea about concussions. Uh, we have all these like 8, 9, 10, 12 year olds that are running around in football helmets, and the parents feel like since they got these cool helmets, the chances that their kids are going to have concussions went way down. That's actually the opposite. With those helmets on, the chances your kids are going to get concussion went way up. The reason for that is that you get a concussion because the brain hits the skull, not because something hits the head or hits the skull. So the way that you decrease concussions in children and not all athletes is you strengthen the neck, and then you kind of make this part stronger and thicker and heavier and this part lighter. And that's the way that we normally will do it. And so when we do that, if you get hit and your head whips around a whole lot, it rattles the brain around. That's where you get your concussion. So making the head heavier, making it harder for the neck to stabilize, and then making the bobblehead issue worse increases your concussion rates. So keep that in mind. Now, this is a question I get a lot, and I got it yesterday. 14-year-old kid wants to be taking creatine. Mom says no because mom's trying to do the best she can to help her kid out. That's the wrong move. You 100% want every one of your athletes, girls, boys, all of them, on creatine if they're in a sport that has any type of contact. Or if you're going to fall down. You got soccer, you've got basketball, you've got, this baseball, softball thing. You might fall down, you might, get hit in the head with a ball. Like lots of things are going to happen. Creatine is neuroprotective. It helps the brain heal, regenerate, repair from the moment of impact. So you definitely want to have creatine circulating throughout your body. That'll help out. The average estimate, if you're going to go with one, is 5 to 10 grams per every 100 pounds of body weight. I'm about 250. I take between 20 and 25 grams a day. It has a lot of other things, obviously, for muscle growth, muscle creation, muscle health as well. So creatine is a phenomenal nutrient to have, but you can also just eat a lot of red meat and you'll be good. Well, to a degree. You'll be better if you eat red meat. So creatine is a phenomenal one to take for brain function and health. Here's the other thing. I know a lot of you moms and dads are out there telling your kids this, and maybe you can have them watch this video or bring it in. I'll tell them. Lots of people bring their kids in for me to tell them this. Water, super duper critical to safety, function, all of it. So one of the ways our bodies use water is they use it like a dump truck. So all the waste, all the inflammatory stuff, all the bad stuff gets thrown into the water, and then you sweat, pee, you excrete that water somehow. And it takes the waste with it. So that's one thing. The other thing is that when muscles are hydrated, and we've got research on this, when muscles are hydrated, they contract harder. They contract more often. They can contract more times. So basically what we're saying is that you're stronger, you have greater endurance, and you have greater functionality over time. So, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, you're going to have more functionality if you're hydrated properly. And what is hydrated properly is actually different for every person because it's a cumulative function over days and all that fun jazz. Typically, what we will tell people is if you wake up in the morning and your urine is yellowish, and then within an hour or two it's clear, you're usually pretty okay. If you're looking for an amount of, well, how much should I drink to get there? We're in Texas, and it's been unseasonably cool. It's been amazing, but usually till middle of September, it's still 100 degrees outside. And so what I tell people is try to shoot for 100% of your body weight in ounces. So that's a good goal to shoot for. It's not going to make people hyponatremic, any of that type of stuff. Now, speaking of hyponatremic, and so hyponatremic is when you get more water in, you flush out all your electrolytes, all your minerals. I'll tell you that, with working with thousands and thousands of athletes and people and whatever, we're all way minerally deficient. So getting in your minerals is a really, really big deal. So, in sodium and potassium and chlorine and magnesium, those are the easy ones. The selenium, the molybdenum, the boron, the copper. Copper is a big one. You got to get the right amount of copper in. That's a little bit more difficult. So typically what a lot of people do is take the superior mineral, and that covers most everybody. That's what my kids take. It's what I take. And so minerals are a really, really big deal. So make sure you're getting those in. Just as a quick little touch on that, if you're sweating and you taste your sweat and it's not very salty, you are wildly minerally deficient. So you've really got to take a look at that one. So minerals are going to be a big, big piece of this. And then, actual physical function. In about 2 or 3 weeks, right about October, we're going to start seeing a lot of these younger kids have hamstring issues, have knee issues, have low back issues, have ankle issues. So here's what happens. Kids are real resilient. They're rubbery. They bounce back, all those fun things. However, they still take these injuries. And any of you who have children or have been around children a lot recognize that they move themselves into weird positions, and they sit there and they watch their phones and they do all these weird things, weird positions, and that's fine. But sometimes they get stuck in those weird positions. And sometimes they're playing football or baseball or whatever, because of the running and the pushing themselves really hard, they're bumping into stuff, getting completely exhausted, and then going to sleep, all of which are fantastic for them. Their joints get out of position, their musculature gets tighter in some areas than others, and it leads to injury. This is the typical maintenance stuff that we've got to do on all athletes. And this is one of those things. If you decide to be an athlete, or your kid has decided to be an athlete, there's going to be a lot more maintenance function you're going to have to do on that body. Again, Ferraris require more maintenance than Toyota Corollas. That's just where it is. So if your kids are being athletic, they're going to have to get adjusted. They're going to have to start doing some stretching work. They're going to have to start watching what they're eating, cleaning up the diet a little bit, that type of thing. But typically what we end up seeing is I'll tell, excuse me, I will tell most parents, at the 10 to 13-year-old range, 1 to 2 times a week, adjusting for these kids in these high impact sports, basketball, football, lacrosse, things like that. Once, twice a week is pretty solid. Once you get a little bit older, like let's say that you get into the pro range, I would get adjusted 2 or 3 times a week. College, so I would say high-end high school, 2 or 3 times a week. The reason for this is because when you start, especially if you're thinking that your kid might be scholarship worthy, or you've got colleges looking at them, 100% I would get them adjusted at least twice a week. The reason for this is because usually injuries don't occur overnight. Traumatic injuries do, but those ones where you're just like, man, I pulled my hamstring, or man, my knee's just been giving me all sorts of grief or whatever. Those are body positioning issues. And if we can reset those, if we can adjust those back to where they're supposed to be, you'll be fine. So keeping allowing that thing that deviates a little bit, bring it back, deviates a little bit, bring it back, deviates a little bit, bring it back. It keeps it from getting to the point where it just fails. So getting adjusted is a really, really big piece of maintaining overall physical function. So getting them adjusted, and then making sure that they're, that whatever diet we've set for these kids, and this is the problem because most Americans, let alone the athletes, haven't had their diets set together. This is, again, and this goes back to the calories thing, and this is where my big issues is. We're counting carbohydrates, we're counting fiber, which never gets in the body by definition, sugar, which has a host of hormonal function with it, and starch, all is the same thing. Well, in the calorie system, we're also saying protein is exactly the same as this too. So, but bringing in the nutrients, bringing in the things that these kids need and all athletes need is something that any real athlete 100% needs to work with someone who knows what they're doing on nutrition to figure out what they should eat. And you're going to have a lot of different athletes that require totally different meal sets. So, for instance, let's take a football team. And again, this is not hard and fast, but most of your offensive linemen, especially as they mature, and we're looking at high school and college and pro, most of those guys are going to trend more meso, endo, or endo, right? And so they're going to require a completely different diet than some of your tight ends, your wide receivers, your safeties and corners and stuff like that, because their bodies are built different and they run different. So, you're going to see a lot more ectos in the wide receiver and defensive back category than you're going to see on the offensive line. That's just where it is. So dialing in the diet for those individuals is going to be really, really important, because when we see the quality of your diet and the quality of your maintenance matters more the higher the quality of the athlete that you are. So if you're 13 years old and you're a phenomenal athlete, and you're pushing yourself really hard, we've got some athletes. I've got some Woga girls, some 10-year-old girls who work out 6 hours a day. Like, they are crushing it. And if their diet's on point and they're not getting adjusted on a regular basis, they break a lot. So it doesn't matter necessarily your age. It matters the intensity at which you are playing and the effort you're putting in. So if you've got a 12 or 13-year-old who's crushing it and working really, really hard, and this is the thing they do, monitoring their diet and their supplementation and their adjusting and their warm-ups and their sleep is going to be really critical to keep them functioning. If you don't have somebody to work with you on that with your kids, you are putting them and everybody else in a really, really bad position. So I would find somebody to work with on that at whatever level you're willing to do it. But getting that dealt with is going to be really, really big deal. So we work with kids of all ages. We were a pediatric specialty practice for about 6 years. But if you guys have any questions, hit us up. We'll be able to help you guys put all that together. Questions at chalmerswellness.com or hit us at pillarsofwellness.com. You guys have a fabulous day. Thanks for your time.